Well, happy Easter. It's so great to see you all. It's been such a long time. Last Easter this time, our building was in pieces. Last Easter this time, drywall was removed from the building and carpet was out of the building by this point. By Easter last year, it was all bare floor and studs from here to the doors because of the flooding caused by the winter storm. The Easter before that, we were a month into the beginning of this pandemic that continues today. And we were all home, hoping that a few weeks of self-isolation, chosen isolation, would slow this thing and we would be back to normal sometime soon. We're not there yet. I don't know that we will be. I have to think that that's kind of what the disciples were thinking as they were hidden in that upper room, right? If you remember the story, Good Friday happens and Jesus is arrested and tried and crucified. And his disciples, the apostles, they run and they hide while the women remain at the cross, taking the body down from the tomb. Peter and James and the rest, they're off in hiding, hoping that a little bit of isolation will get things back to normal. Hoping that if they just stay away for a little while, things will just pass over and they won't have to deal with it. Wouldn't that be nice? It's amazing to me how 2,000 odd years between then and now, so very little changes. Those 12 and the rest of Jesus' disciples all hiding and thinking, I just don't want to deal with it. I don't want to deal with what will happen if the authorities see me when I'm out there. I don't want to deal with what will happen if I'm associated with this man who was executed as a criminal. I'm afraid of what might happen if I leave this place and go out. That's where the story finds the women at the end of Mark's gospel as well. The women are given this great news. Jesus is not here. He is not here. He is risen. The tomb is empty. And we think, isn't that great news? Let's go and tell everybody. But instead, Mark says they said nothing to anyone. Why? They were afraid. They were afraid. They were afraid to speak out because someone might not believe them. They were afraid to speak out because they might lose friends and family members. They were afraid to stand up for the justice and the righteousness that Jesus had come to proclaim. So they said nothing to anyone because they were afraid. Maybe they thought to themselves, maybe if we just wait and do nothing, things will go back to normal. Maybe if we just wait and do nothing, we won't have to deal with it. I feel like that's the way, as a culture and as a people, that's the way we deal with a lot of things. I just don't want to address the issue. It's too political. It's too dangerous. Maybe someone else will deal with it. Maybe if I just don't say anything, maybe then I can just get back to normal. Here's the thing. For the women who went to the empty tomb, for the disciples and apostles who were in hiding, normal never came. There was no going back. after the empty tomb. We know what happens after the end of Mark's gospel, right? We know that Jesus came and was among them and they encountered the risen Christ. We know that the Holy Spirit was poured out on them at Pentecost and nothing was never the same. Not only were their lives never the same, the world was never the same. Nothing went back to normal. Thanks be to God. Jesus changed everything. I think we spent so long, since our last Easter here in 2019, we spent so long hoping that things would go back to normal, and we have sold God short by hoping for the way things were. Instead of a real encounter with the risen Jesus Christ who changes our lives and the world, nothing can ever go back to normal, and it shouldn't. We're selling God short. The Easter experience says that nothing will ever be the same. The Easter experience says once you have seen that empty tomb, your life will never go back, only forward. You can never unsee what you've seen when you've encountered the risen Christ. You can never follow the same path once that Spirit has been poured out on you. With the disciples and the apostles and the women at the tomb, there's plenty in our world to say we're overcome with fear and worry and anxiety, so let's say nothing to nobody. Let's try and go back to our homes and hope that this will pass and get back to normal. Whether you're talking a pandemic that has hit from here to the other side of the globe, whether you're talking election cycles that never end in our country, whether you're talking wars in the Ukraine or across the globe. It's so easy to just try and look away. Hope it will pass. Someone else will deal with it. Maybe if I don't think about it, it'll go back to normal. But there, waiting for us, on the other side of normal, on the other side of the empty tomb, is the risen Jesus Christ, the one who brings hope and strength and joy. And instead of going back, brings transformation. Instead of going back, brings healing and redemption. Instead of going back, brings resurrection and new life. What comes next? What comes next is not what came before. Why would we want that? Why would we want that? It wasn't better before. It's better ahead. It's better with redemption. It's better with a risen Christ. It's better walking with the power of God alongside us as we discover the new thing and the new place that God is calling us after we have encountered this resurrection moment, after we have encountered the empty tomb. Dear friends, you're meant for so much more than normal and the way things were. You're meant for so much more than waiting and hoping that this moment will pass and someone else will deal with it. You are meant for so much more. The risen Christ meets you today and calls you in your life now to go out with joy, to be a part of that transformation, that reconciliation, that redemption, and that new life that is coming forth in the world. The risen Christ calls you, dear friend, to proclaim the good news that Christ is risen and nothing will ever, ever be the same. Thanks be to God.